it's hard to get somebody to sit down and realize to look long term. I mean, they're battling day to day with their customers, with their vendors, with their employees, with whatever, every day. And then all of a sudden they got to kind of take a breath and think about this. How do you guys approach that?
How does a business owner, where do you start? What's important to kind of look at for getting a business ready for an exit? And I really think that there's three different things, and they're obvious, right? It's the business itself, it's the business owner, and it's the market, right? And so we've had conversations about this and, different times, with a business owner about, or different industries and what's going on in the market. So the market piece, you can't really control what's going on in the market, but you can be aware from a timing standpoint, and you want to be ready when it's the right time to exit. Or there's an opportunity and or there's like some type of synergy with either, a strategic or private equity. But really before you get ready to get to that point, you're kind of looking at the business owner themselves, their personal mental readiness and their financial readiness, for an exit.
What kind of plans do you guys typically, when you meet with an owner, give them some options? What kind of plans would you say would be appropriate for, a middle market business, a family-owned company? Maybe it's a single owner, maybe it's a family. It could be a family business, right? It could be 4 or 5 members or 2 brothers or 2 sisters, whatever. But they still rely on that next level.
That's a great point. In publicly traded corporations, you generally have equity or participation shares, SARs, et cetera, to use as methods of long-term compensation. In a family-held or closely held company, you oftentimes do not. And so if your last name does not match that of the family ownership, you're not going to become an owner. However, oftentimes those folks can be, wouldn't say this in front of many family owners, but can be more important than the folks with the same last name.
Maybe what are some of the key components that you guys address in the Southside QV for our audience?
Yeah, the most important items to address, obviously, quality of earnings. It's a little bit deeper dive into the revenue and the quality of the revenue. A lot of times, even if a client has been audited in the past, that's kind of a certification of a historical scorecard at a point in time for the balance sheet and definitely a specific period, most often a year on the previous year on the income statement and cash flows. The quality of earnings differs because it dips into the business cycles, the quality of the earnings, the quality of the backlog, the profitability of specific SKUs. It's providing the seller and the buyer a lot more insight into the revenue. And as we know, the revenue is the primary driver for all businesses.
What kind of led, post-closing, how did that decision, this isn't really working for me anymore, and I don't feel like the person I am right now, and I got to make some changes. So it kind of lead you to that exit.
Changed. There was a little bit of transition because now I'm reporting to someone, so that was new for me.
Right.
But the upside was I spent 3 years doing acquisitions. So now I've got a
deal guy.
Big public company behind me,
right,
with millions and millions of dollars, and I went out and bought 4 of my competitors who were / friendly competitors, and we went from 25 people to 80 people in 3 years, from $6 million in revenue to $18 million in 3 years. I mean, it was tremendous growth, and the challenging part for me as the CEO was the culture part, bringing in these new cultures into a blend of the Rollins agency, and we sold to Brown & Brown into Brown & Brown. So I worked really hard for 3 years, and I think it finally took its toll on me. I was working harder than I ever had in my life.
Sometimes you get to that age where you don't have that time. That, time is precious, right? It's limited. You don't, how am I going to make this work? I'm 71 years old, right? I don't have the energy, really, truthfully, or the time to make that investment and stay on. So that puts them into that other bucket you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. There's, we tend to think in timelines, and appropriately so, because history would say, these kinds of things take a lot of time to change. They don't have to. If we put our energy in the right place, it's amazing how quickly things change. Where I see organizations struggle with this is they didn't do the job of changing where they're thinking from when they're working on their future. They're thinking from the same place, contemplating their future. And when they do so, all they're doing is replicating what they already are. You have to change where you're thinking from first if you're going to change your future and how I'm thinking about those things. And one of the places in which to change how we think is to recognize that, by default, we understand and have incredibly detailed, nuanced understanding, language, and sophistication around the business systems of organizations. Right? Highly mature. That's what MBA programs teach. That's what any continuous improvement, any of those methodologies around proven process to improve business and so on. Those are all business systems conversations. And what's interesting about the business side of our business is that leadership cares a great deal about that.
And so I just, I'd love to know how you guys came up with the idea, hey, we got to do more for our clients, especially our business clients. How did that all evolve for you guys?
The idea was, you empower advisors to take care of clients really well. Mm-hmm. And the clients will really enjoy that experience because they know that the advisor is not trying to sell them anything. So that idea was kind of the genesis of the business. Lo and behold, we started attracting a lot of business owners. Why? Well, business owners have such complicated lives, right? I mean, business owners, right? They're every night they're thinking about their work-life balance. How do they get their work-life balance straight? How do they take care of their leadership team? How do they transition to the next generation? How do they manage their own personal finances, their retirement goals, their tax liability, their estate plan, their insurance plan? All these things are swirling around in their head. They're very smart people, but that can be overwhelming. And so we were really well positioned to step in to help those business owners to get all that stuff straight so they could sleep at night, so they could actually enjoy the fruits of their labor. Small businesses are the heartbeat of America. I mean, they are most business, new job creation comes out of small and mid-sized businesses. So we felt an obligation to help these business owners. We constructed the firm in a way that really, really takes good care of them. And now here we are 14 years later. We continue to invest in our team to get certified, experienced, licensed, to take care of these business owner clients and help them move the business to perhaps the next generation or to an outside buyer.
You made that determination that we needed some advice. We needed someone to basically represent us. Did you talk to your lawyer or accountant and said, like, how should we do this? I mean, how did you get that realization that you need to be represented in one of the most important decisions in your life?
Well, this is our largest asset. Let's do this the right way. Let's hire an M&A firm, and we interviewed 3 of them to figure out, how do they work, and let's pick one, and let's do it that way. And sure, it costs extra money, but oh my gosh, we got so much more for our company because we used an advisor, because they know how to, you know how to sell companies.
Right.
You could take the personality off and you can look at our financials for 5 years and do pro formas and all of that, and you've done this so many times. You know how to put all that together. We had no idea.
And need to spend $1 million to buy this piece of equipment, and the father or brother say, I don't want to spend that. I'm going to retire in 2 years. I'll never see the return on that. Where the other one, who's 10 years younger, says, we need it, otherwise our business is going to start to, we're going to start losing margin and we're going to lose to competition. So how do you kind of address that aspect of it? Because multiple parties are owners.
You have to approach it. Our first meeting is going to be with all the stakeholders, all the owners, right? And then you have to have individual meetings with each one of them, kind of like, just have conversations, understand each one's separate goals. And then I'll use a diagnostic tool, like, just like a survey with like 40 different questions, with each one. And then what I'll do is I'll pull it together in a comparison report and show where their gaps are, right? And kind of bring that up in conversation with the group. And then I'll ask them to go and do some homework and have some conversations amongst themselves, and then come back, and we'll talk about where those overlaps were, in, different value drivers for the company, some of their goals, just, what their perception, for the company and how to move to a next step. And then at that, and I'll assure them that, the first step is kind of understanding and having them communicate what each one is looking for to do. And then we can figure out the right strategy on how to move forward.
Now they're going to look at the sell side and the buy side. There's going to be some obviously difference negotiated, but from your perspective, from both sides, let's say from the sell side QV, because you're going to get brought in earlier in a transaction now because you're working with the seller, because the buyers are going to have some questions. How do you work with that so that that you get comfort to the buyer on your work?
Transactions are fragile, and coming in as an advisor, most often one that's been advising the company for a number of years, you're giving the seller that comfort in regards to carrying them through the transaction, just as you've provided services to them over the years, but you're also giving the buyer comfort. The amount of knowledge that you have about the enterprise, your ability to answer the questions and speak through, what I say transaction speak. A lot of times the controllers and CFOs, it's the first transaction that they've gone through in their career, and they can speak to the business in regards to the moving parts, operating cycles, how information flows, and they can provide a lot of information in regards to the data dump, but they can't really carry through the quote transaction speak. And that's where professionals like our transaction advisory services and folks like myself who have been trusted advisors over the years to the seller can drive a lot of value.
People who are in their early 60s to 70. I mean, we have a lot of clients right now, and a lot of phones are ringing that it's time. I need to do something. But they don't really have a plan, or haven't really set out with an exit plan. They really thought through it. So, we end up spending a lot of time in nurturing the concerns about how this is going to look once you sell.
Yeah, the Exit Planning Institute just came out with their business owner readiness survey. I think it was yesterday, or the day before, and not surprising to you and I, maybe surprising to the general public, 75% of current business owners want to exit their business in the next 10 years.
Yeah.
50% want to leave in the next 5. So if they aren't already working on it, they're probably not going to be perfectly prepared for that exit in the next 5 years. So it takes a bunch of time to get your financials in good shape, right? You help a ton with that. What you all do preparing a business owner for sale is super valuable. It's to make sure that when you are ready to pull the trigger and you've found a good partner to transition the business to, everything is in good order.
You'll say our people are our greatest asset and our most important resource, but so that's true whether you're in operation mode, in pre-sale mode, and in cleanup and maximize the thing mode, shine the floors and polish everything, or if you're the new owner going forward. And so it's really a program that spans, as I've already implied, sort of spans from whether it's a pre-sale or a situation or not, into the sale and beyond, into the ongoing new organization going forward. And it can be a lot cheaper than sharing equity. A lot of companies think, well, I gotta give away 10% ownership to the management team to lock them up and get them to stay. If it's a strategic sale and the new buyer thinks they can really jack the value and the performance of the company, that's very expensive compensation. And it's obviously going to be minority ownership. So it's not going to change the ability to manage.
When you get into these multiple family members or partnership arrangements, there is a finality. Someone's going to exit sooner than the other person. How do you guys address that?
I don't think we can have an easy solution, but we can make a valid point. The valid point is, document your business continuity plan, as part of a process, and working with, a team of advisors like myself and you, and with the CPA, is kind of like, put the objectives in place, identify personal and business resources, know what the value is of your business, make your business more transferable.
Said, how do you guys, sit with your clients and kind of get them to be honest with you about that?
Yeah, there's a rough statistic out there from that PwC did a study a number of years ago that suggested that 75% of business owners, after they exit their business, profoundly regret it.
Mm-hmm.
That's stunning and sad. So I think our business model allows us to kind of be counselors to our clients, because 99% of people in our business, in our profession, in wealth management, people get compensated based on the revenue they generate. That's not a great thing for the client, because the client, therefore, is a source of income for that advisor. And they're going to try to generate revenue if they're paid based on the revenue they generate.
Right.
We changed that. We turned that whole model up on its ear so that our advisors are paid a salary and they're paid a bonus and incentive compensation based on retention of existing clients, not getting new clients or generating revenue. So they can really spend the time that's necessary to make sure the clients are happy. That starts with kind of a big counseling session of, let's talk about your goals. What's important to you? What's important to your family? What's your legacy? What's the legacy you want to leave? What do you want to do in life after your business? There's a ton of next chapter planning that
the buyer walked, because who's going to run the business? We don't trust this person. And we know that your employees don't trust this person, even though he's been there for 8 years doing his job, sitting in his office, never really coming out, never really engaging. But it caused a lot of tension.
The higher quality conversations that organizations is having
Right.
will be absolutely mirrored in the quality of the performance of that organization, the quality of the relationships inside of that organization, and the quality of the experiences people are having, whether inside or outside of that organization. And so to the degree in which listening is available is the same degree in which performance is available. And what I find in organizations that struggle is that their listening is very limited to a handful of people's worldview based on their past experiences and their past knowledge, assuming, and this is where a lot of leaders run the risk of, assuming that the world operates based on how they're experiencing it. I find that to be the most dangerous time in an organization's history, is when the listening is collapsed around a particular set of individuals' ideas about how things actually are.
You have a whole practice, national practice, transaction services, that does sell-side QV. When you're talking to somebody about doing it, and what percentage say that's a great idea, I'm willing to write that check, and what say, you know what, I'm going to go without it?
Yeah, so I have, it's almost 100%. I know all the success that you've had bringing companies to market, and it would be interesting for you and I to get together at some point and really kind of nail this down. But if you were going to look at a graph and you were going to say enterprise value at the start of the transaction, and you were going to plot that over time, I know that the value goes down over time more often than not. You take the Q of E cost, it's tax deductible, so Uncle Sam's covering a portion of it, and then the readiness factor and the success factor, getting a deal started and closed in a much shorter time frame. It reduces the follow-up professional costs. If a deal goes on and it's a pick it up, put it down, you incur more legal fees, you incur more professional fees. If you're ready,
Right.
You can have a shorter transaction time, which will ultimately net out your net to be less if you do the sell side Q of E.